Hey, my dark and lovely souls. I'm Lenny Graves, the Wicked Wizard of the West, and I'm going to do some tarot card reading here in a little bit. But before I did, I kind of like talking about just things that strike my fancy on YouTube. And tonight I thought I'd talk a little bit more about psychedelics. I did a post on Facebook a few days ago about psychedelics, and people kind of dig psychedelics. It's really opening up, and we can talk about that. But we're not going to talk about that so much today. And when I say talk about that, is I'm thinking about doing a series of videos, and comment below if you'd be interested in it, because if I get feedback on this stuff, it kind of helps. And I'm going to talk to you about, well, why we're at it even before we get there. I'm running a kind of a contest. If I can get 100 subscribers on YouTube, so please subscribe. I'm going to give away a half-hour reading that I do live. Well, not live, but we do it like this way, and it's just one-on-one reading. And I do your astrology, I do your cards, all that kind of good stuff. And I usually charge like $50 for that. So it's I think it's a good value. So anyway, it's all you have to do is really basically subscribe to the channel. And I'd really like to start growing my subscription base, and I would really appreciate it. But now I'm wasting enough time on that. So let's talk about psychedelics, because that's why you're here. Years ago, and I'm not going to get in depth on my problems and stuff like that, but I felt the need to pursue magic mushrooms in particular. As a kid, I played around like LSD and stuff like that, but I was more of a stoner and a drinker than anything else. But in my mid-30s, I guess, that would be, I really felt more called to the path of psychedelics. And like I said, magic mushrooms in particular, because magic mushrooms are really just natural. DMT is too, and like ayahuasca and stuff like that. But for me, magic mushrooms seemed the way to do it. And I was really interested in like Terence McKenna. If you haven't heard him, Google him or YouTube him, and many wonderful talks. Terence McKenna is a very wise man. He was taken from us way too early. And he believed in high doses of psychedelics, at least 5 grams. And if you've never taken magic mushrooms before, there's different levels to it. Like if you take 1 or 2 grams, I would say it's kind of like just being giddy. It's kind of like being stoned, but I'm usually in stoned. So it's what it is. It's kind of fun. You might get a little bit of visuals and stuff like that. When you get over 5, things start to get weird. And I think they're like 5 and 10 and 20 and 25. And I'm going to talk to you about as deep as I went today. I can tell you about the differences between like a 5-gram trip and a 10-gram trip and stuff like that, and we'll get more into that a little bit. But like anything under 5 grams, I wouldn't say it's like for a party. I never believe that magic mushrooms or any kind of psychedelic is for fun. People abuse it for fun. It's not for fun. It's for spiritual enlightenment. It's for opening your third eye. And we'll talk about microdosing a little bit too. And I'm sorry if I'm saying a bunch. I should have probably wrote this out so I had bullet points, but I'm a Gemini, so I'm real spontaneous. I just like to sit down and talk. So if I tend to wander off topic for a second, this is like really profound for me, but kind of bear with me, because again, if you're interested in psychedelics, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but as somebody could read books about skydiving all day long and pretend like they knew what skydiving's about, and they kind of do. But until you actually just start jumping out the fucking plane, you're never going to really get the sensation or the ability to do it, right? And I was stupid enough to jump right the fuck out of the plane because I'm dumb. I do dumb shit in my life. It's not really dumb, but we'll get into it. So anyway, and also disclaimer, I do not condone doing anything illegal at all. What you do is between you and your gods and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not saying, hey, go and take psychedelics if they're illegal where you are. If you should live somewhere they're legal. I'm not going to say right now that you can absolutely order spores you can absolutely order spores completely legal online, which you can. But you just can't grow them. You can't have mushrooms. But if you could mushrooms grow in a small plastic tub rather easily, you can find out how, probably for less than $50 on YouTube. But I wouldn't tell anybody to do that. That's up to you what you do with your life. But should you feel compelled to do that, magic mushrooms, I would say many years ago I felt compelled, as many years ago as you want to say that I did or didn't or whatever. But I really needed to experiment. I had lost all faith in well, I guess we could talk about that for a second because it'll set up the talk. And I'm sorry, this is going to be a longer talk. I usually will do shorter YouTube videos, but this one might go 20, 25 minutes. I apologize. It's a long topic. I had really, I had lost Christianity. So I had an atheist mindset, but I didn't really care for being an atheist. I don't know how atheists deal with it. Comment below. It sucks. You're fucking dead and that's it. And you're like, well, I don't know any better. Yeah, I know. That's awesome. It's not awesome at all. Non-existence doesn't sound fun to me. And that really bothered me. That kept me up at night, right? That started to play with my mind, make me depressed and stuff like that. And I couldn't get past it. So I had done a lot of research, and Terrence McKenna came up, and some different people. And somebody that I really admired had said that he had dealt with anxiety about death and depression and all that kind of stuff. And a 5 gram magic mushroom trip just snapped him right the hell out of it, right? So I thought, well, fuck it. I'll give it a shot. And I didn't know anybody. And I tried to look around for somebody who might be able to find me some magic because, it might be illegal. I'm not going to say what you should or shouldn't do. So eventually I figured out, I just fuck it, and I'd grow them. And there's not really hard to grow, and you grow a lot, right? So, and again, I had no interest in selling anything at all. Again, this is for spiritual purposes. And I didn't even know what I was getting into. So I just had a fucking ton of magic mushrooms, and I'm stupid. So I started with the 5 grams, and 5 grams was, it's pretty cool. It's not quite what I thought it was going to be. And then, I messed around with a couple grams, and I would take walks in nature, which I would highly recommend. Again, I guess you could say that's recreational, but I don't think so, because when you take 2 or more grams of mushrooms, and it depends on the strain and your height and weight and stuff like that, but usually this is as a rule. You might have to take a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. It's kind of, psychedelics are intense. It's an intense experience, but sometimes in life we need to have intense experiences. But if you hit it right, you'll see what I like to call the glow. And just everything kind of shifts and has this beautiful glow. And I'll get teary because I'll be like, shit, because you forget. This is why I took psychedelics, is that it's not just matter, that we really are just all fucking energy that comes from the same goddamn source that's condensed into this slow vibe, and we're all separated out from each other, right? You can see it, right? You can literally kind of, and you're not high, you're just literally kind of seeing it, right? And then as you get deeper, like I said, magic mushrooms are they've got layers. And at different levels, you kind of have a deeper and deeper experience, right? Until you get to the really, really deep experiences. So after 10 or after 5, I decided to do 10. And that's where I really started to hallucinate more, I guess is what people would say. I don't really think it's hallucinations. What I think happens is your third eye opens when you're awake. And, what does a physicist say? There's 9 or 10 dimensions or whatever it is. And they all kind of exist at the same time in the same place, right? So we don't know, Lovecraft wrote stories about this and shit. We don't know what's there could be a fucking scary monster slithering right here in the 9th dimension trying to suck my thoughts or whatever. I wouldn't know. Just like a 2-dimensional person wouldn't really comprehend us moving through the 3rd dimension. He would just see people flashing around. He wouldn't, anyway, that's deep. So on 10 or more grams, I noticed that different styles, entities and stuff lived in different lights. And I'd rather talk about that as a separate video if people really want to talk about this. I want to go to the most intense one. I guess I should primer you guys for it, build you up for it, but fuck it, why? We go right in. Just go right the fuck in. So I did the 10, and then I decided to go, well, fuck it, because I think it was Paul Stamus. I'll put it below. I always forget the guy's name. He's a mushroom guy. He's really awesome. He was on Joe Rogan. He talked about how he did 20 grams of mushrooms, and how Joe Rogan said, "I'm surprised you didn't become a fucking superhero." And I thought that was a challenge. So fuck yeah, I'm gonna be a superhero too. And he talked about what an intense experience it was and stuff like that, right? And he had climbed a tree and shit like that. I don't know fucking how he did that, but so I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do that." And I said, but I'm going to do it more. And I decided to take 25. And so when you take that many mushrooms, you go to that really bottom layer. And I'll try to describe the experience for you because I haven't done it since. And it really put me off to the whole experience of psychedelics. Not because I don't think they're enlightening, but because so your experiences are only what your experiences are. And I'm going to tell you what you'll say is obviously hallucination. But if you had a deep trip into magic mushrooms, you won't be like, no, that's not fucking hallucination at all. And here's the long story short of this. I used to, like I said, be atheistic and afraid to die. I'm absolutely no longer an atheist. I'm not really afraid to die anymore. I'm not looking forward to it because I don't think they have tacos where you go. But I know you go somewhere else. I know this is just one layer of something so much deeper. So that was worth what I kind of went through. But what I went through was pretty fucking intense. And so what I did was I set myself up, as Terrence McKenna would advise you, with a couple joints, and I decided to smoke a fucking like a concentrate, hit a resin to amp up the effect, and then I made a big fucking blue shake, protein shake, and I had actually fasted and I had worked out. Again, this was like a religious experience, I guess, for lack of a better term, but religion has such a bad taste. Spiritual, it's better idea. Spiritual. So I drank that back, and this is where I would say I'm not very like a chosen one or anything. What I do is I have a really good stomach. I can keep shit down, right? I think a lot of people would vomit that back up because it's an intense flavor. But I got it down, and I managed to keep it down long enough that I knew it was going to stay down. So then I decided to wait for the trip to happen. I had taken the 10 grams and I had taken the 5 grams and the 2 grams and stuff. And I was feeling like I was a pretty confident psychonaut. I had been doing, like I said, I had been doing 2 10-gram trips. I had really felt like I was in like a shamanic, I was awakening to something. So I needed to know, right? Like, and I was just going to fucking know. I was going to go deeper than anybody, and I was going to find those answers out. I did, and I will remember this day for the rest of my life, and I will hopefully again in my life hear the play. That's a story that needs to be told, and hopefully again I will be able to either help people share in this experience that I think you probably should do, because it'll rewrite reality for you, if you will. And myself, I would like to do it again, though I'm not quite ready to. And this has been years. It's still years because it's still such an impactful experience, right? And also, there's a lot of people online that will bullshit you about psychedelics and what psychedelic trips are like and shit like that. They used to bullshit me, and for lack of a better term, they're talking out their ass. They don't. It's a lot of things I'm going to describe to you right now. You're going to hear me say a lot and try to describe things that you really can't describe, and because there's just no really good words for it. And I think that's where people like, I'm going to talk about like entities and fractals and stuff like that, but it's not really like that. It's something beyond that. And maybe I'll be able to articulate it correctly. So anyway, but I'm going to talk about on the come up before the hallucinations really started, or the visuals, whatever you want to call them. I began to have like a sense of disconnection from my senses, if you will, and not like in a weird, scary way. I was just like, I noticed that like I was more inclined, like I was taking these big hits, right? Like, I'm gonna take a big hit. This is my little girl pipe here. My little girl pipe is my big hooter chick with the nice. Anyway, it's my woman. I'm kidding. This is my cool ass pipe, but I lost my train of thought because it's much. So no, I had sat and I had smoked, and I'm waiting, and I noticed that I'm taking these big fucking hits, right, of this concentrate shit, and I mean just super hits, and I'm holding it. And my girlfriend, who's my trip sitter at the time, she, my ex-girlfriend, throw that out there to the universe. Anyway, it's a very nice lady. But my ex-girlfriend, she trips at me that day. And, she was like, I was like, wow. And she's like, taking super big hits. And when we went outside, because I wanted to take a couple more. So I actually drove for 25 grams because I took a few more because I figured I would amp it up. Like I would booster rocket it to the cosmos. Don't fucking do that. So I went, and when I ate those, mushrooms taste like feet. They're just not pleasant, and anybody who says they're just not, and there's not really a good way to make them pleasant. You can kind of drown the taste in peanut butter. You can grind them up into a shake. You can powder them and put them in a capsule for microdosing is what I suggest. I guess you could take like a big fistful of fucking pills, but when I suggest microdosing, I like to grind mine up and I put them in little red pills, because then I feel like I'm Morpheus and I have a cool, and that's okay for me, but I would feel weird like taking fistfuls of pills. That's not what mushrooms are about. So anyway, Like I said, if you're gonna take a bunch, take them in the shake. It digests real quick, and you want it to hit you quick. You don't want to dwell on it. But these I just ate, and they didn't bother me at all. I just ate them like normal, and I was like, it dawned on me, these shouldn't be very tasty, and like I should be choking on my weed. And my girlfriend was looking at me kind of weird too, and I was like, that's the most bizarre thing. And then I just stopped and I looked at her, and to this day I got it. I was like, oh motherfuck, this isn't even a thing. This is like a game. This is like a shitty game that we play. And I remember that, and I can't quite remember the state of thought that brought me to it, but it was like, yeah, you know your name or you know who you are. I just knew it was game. I still do. It's just I didn't have that ultimate sense of like knowing. Like I felt like part of myself that I forgot had been woken up. And I say this is really weird because I looked at my girlfriend, and I don't want this to sound vain. I was like I think like a star or something. I look like I think we all are, right? Like the conscious beings that we'll talk about that here in a second. I was like, hey, we just kind of do this, or we're stuck. So, and I could not quite grasp it. I knew this wasn't right. This isn't who like I'm really. This is like just one facet of my being, right? It was really just profound. And for the rest of my life, this will freak me out a little bit too. And if you've ever been on a really high dose of psychedelics, ask me if you notice this yourself, because I've heard other people have. I felt like feathers were brushing me on the back of my neck and my shoulders. I think this is seriously where art about angels comes from. I didn't think I was an angel or anything like that, not in any kind of traditional sense, but I seriously felt like there were like feathers brushing on the back of my fucking neck. It was goddamn bizarre, right? Well, the whole thing, that's just the beginning of bizarre. And again, the guys, this might be 30 minutes if you want. This is a really cool fucking story, though, in my opinion. And again, I just, it happened, but it didn't happen because I know my girlfriend later on. I mean, you don't see when I say it didn't happen, you're having these like amazing experience, right? And people are kind of just looking at you, or like staring off into fucking space, right? And I wasn't at the staring off in space. So that came later. Right now, we're on the come up. The mushrooms haven't fully hit me yet. They're just starting to, right? This is maybe 20 minutes or so into it, right? And again, made sure that I had fasted and took a quick digesting protein shake with whey. I wanted the mushrooms to hit me as quick as possible because I don't think you should wait and dwell on it. That's how you get a bad trip. And and I can't stress this enough too. I'm going to talk to you about some really weird and horrifying shit, but this was not a bad trip at all. This was just so fucking intense that it didn't scare me, but it's like, whoa, it's like if you got to take your fucking motorcycle and you pop a fucking wheelie at 120 miles an hour and you manage to live and drop down, you're probably not going to do that again, but you're awesome. Right? It's the same, just kind of super intense experience. It's terrifying, but not terrifying in a bad way, like an awesome roller coaster. But I hadn't hit that point yet. I had hit this point of like revelation, I guess, realization that I was more than this, and I knew that for sure. And we'll talk about that maybe later in another talk. I might even do that same talk tonight. It's a different video because I really dig talking about this stuff, but I'll have to do a little bit later. And you guys didn't need to know that. Sorry, again, I'm a Gemini, I ramble. So as I'm coming up, and I have the sense of like, it's just weird. And there was one other mushroom left, this big one, right? And I mean, I remember, and I'm starting to hallucinate at this point. Things are getting weird, and people who've taken mushrooms will know what I'm talking about. The carpet's starting to get that color that's not like, it's that texture that's kind of like what? And like, I don't know how to explain this, but this is why Alice in Wonderland's the way it is. It's perception. Like, you can look over to your chair and you'll be like, why am I 500 feet tall and my chair is just a tiny chair? And then you look over to like, who you're talking to. And then you look back and you realize, oh no, the chair is 500 feet tall. And or not 500, but it's like huge, not small, big, small, like, because your perceptions just start to warp, right? But you're still kind of there. So I have this mushroom and it's literally starting to just go like this, right? Like, and it's like, okay. And I told my girlfriend, I said, because I had researched Gnosticism, if you've ever anything about Gnostics, and that's another talk. I had researched Gnosticism and stuff like that, and I really had felt at that point, and I still do to this day. And again, people would call me nuts, and probably maybe I am. I don't know. Again, you have to experience before you can judge it, right? And people who have taken psychedelics will go with me on this. And it was a big one. These were raw mushrooms too at this point. So this is just like a huge. This must have been like, I don't know. This guy's this big. He's a fat one, right? And he's moving. And I hadn't dried him yet. And the other ones that I'd taken, I hadn't dried yet. And I don't know how many grams that would have been extra. If you would have dried them, it would have been at least another maybe 5 grams. So I probably took up to 30 grams actually, all but 25 and then another 5. And so it's waving, right? And I look over at my girlfriend and I remember saying that I knew it. I don't know why I knew it. Like nobody was talking to me and telling me or anything like that. It's nothing like that. But I just knew. I just knew this was true. That if I ate this mushroom, I would leave. I would check out. I would ascend. I would find gnosis or mastery. And I just wouldn't be here anymore. And I didn't know how that would play out for everybody else because reality was really subjective to me at that point. And I remember, and this is okay. So this freaks my ex out to this day, and she'll tell you that because she was there. So this mushroom, and she didn't see the mushroom waving, obviously, right? She's not having that. She doesn't have her third eye open, right? And I gotta tell you something else about. I'm sorry, I forget this because the lights also turned off. Is the way I put it. And when I say turned off, that's not the right way to put it. Okay, so if you've ever watched a movie where they're filming a movie, and you know how they have the lighting of the movie while they're filming it, but then the director says cut and the overhead lighting comes on and you realize things aren't like as pretty as they should be because the lights off, that happened. And I don't know the best way to explain that. Like the lights really became like this more cold white fluorescent-y light. It's very bizarre, very, very bizarre, right? And we'll get to that in a second. It's like it's like an office fluorescent light, but not quite. But it was a really different shift in light. And for my gamer friends, because I'm a gamer, I like video games and stuff like that. I was looking at Old Republic again earlier today. I was thinking about looking at playing that game for years. But anyway, completely off subject. I apologize. The light. Okay, so like in video games where you'll have lighting effects and shadow effects, it was almost like somebody had turned off the lighting and the shadow effects of the house. And it freaks me out to this day. I should have looked outside. I really regret that. If I ever do it again, I'll be doing it outside with the full moon because I want to see what that will look like. Because I tell you, I saw a bunch of stuff inside. But so the light was that way. I have this mushroom that's literally kind of like just floating around like, hey, because it's really I'm starting to trip. And I looked at my girlfriend and I said, if I eat this, I'll just check out, right? And then I looked too and I said, it's not going to want me to. And when I said it, I still don't know what the fuck it is, right? So you can take that for what that is. I knew at the time, I think. And what did I tell her? I said, I don't know which one we fucking call it, the reality police or whatever. But somebody's going to come and try to stop me from taking this before I take it. And I was like, but I'm going to fucking take it. Nothing's going to stop me from doing it. And right when I fucking said that, my goddamn phone rang. And that freaked me the fuck out, right? And so I went over and I looked at who was calling. It was my friend. And so I figured I'd pick it up real quick because my friend had been going through a tough time. And I wasn't quite there yet, right? The world's weird, but I thought I'd just tell him to call him back. He was having like a really bad night that night. He has PTSD from some of the military stuff that he did. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it's a complete, but he was having a really, really bad night that night. And I just couldn't let him go. All right. So I spent the next 15, 20 minutes trying to talk to him and bring him down a little bit from the place that he was in, all the while most intense mushroom trip in the universe is starting to set in, right? Because I didn't need that last mushroom, but eventually though, it takes 10, 15 minutes to talk to him. And I'm like, buddy, I gotta let you go. He's like, no, cool, I get it. Because I'm like, I'm not quite there anyway. That's a whole different conversation. At this point, I'm really starting to just have intense visuals. I remember the tub where I grew the mycelium for the mushrooms. I could like see what I thought were the Greek gods in the mycelium, like in the clouds of it fighting. It was the most intense visualization, right? And I don't know if they were Greek gods, but they look like that, like marble statues coming up and just like throwing lightning bolts and shit. It was just fucking neat. And I mean, not like full vision. There was in the patterns of the mycelium though, right? And so I'm still pretty there. And I'm thinking about taking the mushroom again, right? And I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to go. Now I'm ready to take that last level of consciousness. And again, knowing that if I take it, and then And I guess it had been enough amount of time, right? Just boom, I get the worst like cramp, right? And then everything goes black. And I'm going to take you to another story a few years before, because I said I'm a big gamer nerd. And one of the people that I play video games with cool fucking people. One of the people I play with in Warcraft was a troll named Snazzy, and he liked to grow his own marijuana in Northern California. And he wasn't doing that; he was smoking fucking DMT and taking a shit ton of psychedelics. And he told me about a psychedelic or a DMT trip he had one time. And he had said how it had distorted time for him. And I said, one time I'd smoked this joint that was laced with acid, and I thought, 12 hours had gone by, but it had been like one, right? And I'm sorry, I had that backwards. I apologize. I thought it had been but it had been 12 hours. Anyway, Stasi was like, no, man, you don't understand. I had been gone for 10,000 years. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know what the fuck that meant, right? I thought that sounded intense. I get that more now. I don't think that's the best way to describe what had happened to me next, but I, for a moment, was just shut off from my own consciousness, but I was still conscious. And it was the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me. And it lasted forever, and it didn't last any time at all. And there is no way to describe this to anyone who hasn't experienced it. I was in some kind of void where time didn't exist for I don't know, a million fucking years it could have been, because there was no concept of time there. It was infinitely long and not enlightening. It was just nothing. And I had this horrible thought for a moment that you're all there fucking is, and you just make this shit up, right? And that really fucking just terrified me, right? And I don't really believe that. I think it was because I was so completely disconnected from everything in this void for a moment. It was just my consciousness, right? Because I don't know if I had my consciousness had, this is really weird to talk about, right? I think my consciousness had severed from my body for a second, right? And I do not know the way to explain that. And as it did, there was nothing for it to sense with, right? And maybe that's why it seems so long. I mean, I could talk about that. I don't know the best way to put it, right? So anyway, but it had been let's say 1,000 years, right? Of just sitting, and there's nothing. There's just nothing. And I'm going to have, so then the worms. And I'm going to actually probably insert in here at this point. I'm new at YouTube. Right now, I'm going to insert a picture of the worms. Okay, that's what I saw. And I drew that afterwards because I didn't know the way to put that. And also, and the little guy there, that's me, because there's no sense of time, right? I'm in the middle of nowhere. And when I saw that, though, what really bothers me to this day, it was how if you had an old school Nintendo 64 or Nintendo, and how it looked glowing, or an animation cell glowing light from beyond. It looked like that. It looked like shitty 16-bit graphics, which to this day I'm maybe we are a fucking game. And I'll talk about the Matrix sometime about that. Hold on one second. See my cat. So this void, this endless fucking void that I don't know another way to describe it. I don't know how to tell you what it was. I don't know how to. You'd have to experience it yourself. And one thing I haven't experienced, and I'm not saying that I would ever break the law or encourage anybody to, is DMT. I haven't had the chance to. I've heard from people who've done both that those deep trips of mushroom are kind of the same, but it's shorter and a bit more. I don't really believe so from what I've heard, but I'll tell you about that in a sec. But maybe people have experienced DMT or really high doses of mushrooms might get what I mean by that, just complete consciousness disconnect. But you're still conscious. I still knew exactly who I was. But that's so. Then I see this reboot, right, or whatever of these worms. It's almost like when you win solitaire in old Windows, how the cards explode everywhere. Except it was these day glow fucking worms, right? And again, I'm not high. I'm maybe stoned because I had smoked some weed, but it's not like you're drunk or on pills, or you're completely, excuse me, you're completely yourself. You're completely level. You're just seeing shit in a perception of time that you never have. So then a cramp hits me again, and bam, I'm back. Reality is there, but it's not really there. So I look at my girlfriend, she's looking at me to her, this is just a second, right? This is what, because I'm gone for thousands of years in my head, and I thought I would be on the floor, I passed out or something. No, I was still fucking just standing there, right? right? I was gone. I don't know how the fuck I was standing, but I never fell over, right? I had no sense of being in my body, but I was just there standing. It's fucking weird. So, but there I'm back right now. I don't feel good at this point. My head's off, and like the reality is literally starting to pixelate and become this kaleidoscope of intensity. So I go barreling into the fucking bedroom because I need to lay down. And then, goddamn it, I feel like, who was the lady in bed knobs and broomsticks are fucking holding on to bed, shooting through the goddamn cosmos? And I know it's not, but you know, that's just what it felt like. And it's not because I felt like I had the sense of movement, but my perception was so off. And I could see like the whole, everything was like just like the Matrix almost, where you're looking at the code. But it wasn't code. It was endless streams of mycelium growing and falling backwards and coming out in eyes looking back at you everywhere you look on these high trips of psychedelics. And if you've taken them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These fucking eyes are looking back at you, right? Reality can see you. It's fucking trippy. That's the best way to put it. I'm sorry, I know I'm a great speaker, but it'll fuck you up. Because it's like, you'll know for the rest of my life, I'll always be like, what the fuck, is that what it really all is? You know, and I'm just seeing like one layer of it. And I mean, it's the government and different studies and stuff like that. They don't want you to take psychedelics. It will free your mind and completely rewrite your brain. We'll talk about the medical benefits later sometime. But they don't want you to do this because this is, and ancient cultures did this shit forever. Because then, you know, like I said, people didn't have their angst about death because they could see and realize that this is all just what it is. But anyway, so I'm in this like, I'm in my apartment and I'm aware of it, right? And everything's like fractalated though, and it's this mycelium glow and these day glow worms and stuff like that. And I'm kind of holding on to the bed. And as I'm doing this, I look in also in my closet, and in my closet there is, I call him Mike because of the Monsters Incorporated, the guy with the big eye, because he had a big eye. And he's maybe like a beholder, if you know what that is in Dungeons and Dragons, but that's not a good word for it. Biblical angel maybe is hard to describe. I think of it from a gut instinct is when I was a kid, I was really into like the occult and witchcraft, but we didn't have the internet. And one of the things I'll talk about later in life is it doesn't matter how you do magic, it matters that you believe you can. And when I was young, I absolutely believed in the Simon Necronomicon. And I did a binding of like a watcher, right? If you know what that is. And I did kind of my ghetto version of it, which I always see ghetto spells and I kind of get ghetto results sometimes. But I don't think I did this time because I got this real sense that that's who that was, that this guy's always been like around. And that really was kind of, and I remember because my girlfriend was a trip, she was like, what is it? It's like, there's Mike's in the closet. And Mike's, it's okay. Mike's not, I remember saying this and I remember looking at it. And again, it was weird, but it was just, it made sense to me. Is Mike's not going to eat us, but that doesn't necessarily mean Mike doesn't eat people. That stuck with me because Mike's not a nice person or entity or whatever he is, but for some reason he's partial to me. And that's actually kind of comforting sometimes. I don't know how to explain that. I don't have like an imaginary friend or anything like that, but like in the ninth dimension or something like that, I think I bound a watcher demon or something like that a long time ago, like some kind of whatever. Again, I believe. I'll tell you about the Necronomicon sometime, why I believe what you believe in fuel spells, but that's a whole different, and this has already been like 30 something minutes. So anyway, so I saw this entity, and then as everything's kind of fractalated, I start to get this sense of these, I can't remember. I have thought 100 times, I have tried to formulate it, but then it came, then the eye came. And the eye is what I think about more than anything. And the eye, is it the eye of Providence? Is it the demiurge? It's the eye on the back of the dollar bill. It's the eye of Saron. It's the eye. And fuck the eye is, right? But the best I can liken the eye to and what happened to me is the eye found me. And it didn't find me in the way like it was wandering around. And this is a different guy than Mike. This is just big fucking eye. And it was just seriously like Bilbo Baggins, right? Floating in the invisible world. Shh. not Bilbo Baggins, Fred, well, I guess both of them. And giant fucking eye just comes shooting out of God out of nowhere. And there's the fucking eye, and it's looking at you like, oh, fuck. It wasn't that kind of eye. It's a hard eye to describe. But it was an eye, and I definitely knew it was an eye. And it had this own white radiance. And that white radiance, though, this is where, like, the eye was like, you motherfucker, you shouldn't be here. And you shouldn't be seeing the shit that you're seeing. And the eye was gonna fuck me up. And it did. And I kept knowing this shit, like some fundamental shit, like about reality and truth and stuff that was just apparent to me. But every time I tried to speak to Bethany, my ex, I got hit with, the only thing that I can liken it to is one of two things, is the dead lights from fucking It, or that goddamn white light in fucking Hellraiser 2 that hits you from the fucking thing in the center. I got hit with this fucking like white light, right? That just blasted my everything else. There was just this eye, and it was dissolving my consciousness. That's the only way I know how to tell you. It was eating me up. It was taking, and I'll tell you why this terrifies me at the end and why the Gnostics and stuff like that. But anyway, this eye was literally just like kind of devouring my consciousness. And thank God I'm a flighty motherfucker, is what I say, is because I noticed, and I don't know how I kept it together, if I didn't really think about anything, I could kind of dodge the eye for a little bit, but I had to just be like completely random in my thoughts. I do not know how to explain this. Because when I tried to like talk, or I tried to put a thought together, boom, the eye would come back, and then bam, white light would hit me. And again, it was just like the most intense, fucked up. I think this is ego death people talk about when they had a high dose of psychedelic. I would not let myself drop into ego death at all. I just was like, fuck you, no, I am who I am. And I would like think about something else, and the light would fade a little bit, right? But then it would find me again. I know that sounds bizarre. It is bizarre. And I'm trying to tell, my ex all these things because I just know, but every time I try to talk, and I'm like, I can't try to talk to you because every time the words, I'm not allowed to talk. And she looked at me, and she was real cool because she knew I was having this like intense experience. And then I'll never forget this too. This really freaked me out, is during that time, the phone rings, and my daughter was over at my mother's house, because you're responsible adult. Somewhat, right? I just know my kids are didn't, but she called, and my ex picked up the phone, and she had on speakerphone because I wasn't screaming or anything. I was sitting there with big wide eyes, and she's never done this since, and she never did it before. And much like when my friend called me, where I stopped me from taking that one mushroom like the system would, she, in the most monotone voice, said, "Customer service." And I just was like, what the fuck? I didn't say that out loud, right? I'm making this face. I said, I'm waving my ex-girlfriend away. I'm like, I can't talk to you, right? I can't talk to you. I can't talk to my kid. It's like, you go talk to her. And then I'm okay in the room by myself, because that just freaked me the fuck out, because she's never said that before. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in some shitty game. It's like Vanilla Sky. They're going to unplug me in a second. It's weird. And that didn't happen. So for like the next, I don't know, time is just real perspective. It was just seeing all these like truths, and like I could see past the walls in my fucking house, and it would just go on like almost infinitely, but it was like a computer outline almost, but it wasn't grid. It was this mycelium going everywhere, and it always ended back in eyes looking back at me. And light didn't work the way it should. It's just all neon colors, and it was just amazing. It was amazing and intense, and I felt completely disconnected from my body. And that would be the best experience of my life if this fucking eye had been chasing me around trying to dissolve my consciousness. And I would keep that from being a good experience. So after doing that for probably, I don't know, maybe 500 years or an hour or so, it came tapering down. The patterns started to be like condensed into reality, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember I went to my, I didn't go, I got up after a while, and, I drank some water and stuff like that. And I'm in my kitchen, and my kitchen's melting. I'm having the most intense fucking, like, the carpet's waving and shit like that, but I'm just, thank God that the eye can't find me anymore. Which I don't even like talking about that, because sometimes I worry like the eye will find me, right? Not even when that was the most intense experience, right? Um, and so I called my friend because he wanted to know. He was big on the whole psychedelic journey with me, and I had told him, I was like, he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm okay now. It was just like the most intense acid experience of my life, and I'm fine," because I was back to reality. I had gone, and after, I don't know, a couple more hours, it just starts to fade back in. And it really took me a few days afterwards to come back together. And I've told people I'm kind of a weird fucking person. I like to do weird shit, and I think about weird things. And I'm real, like, I like to do tarot cards. I'm kind of like a witch, and I do a lot of inward meditation and stuff like that. For lack of a better word. Um, and I always lived in my head since I was a kid. I like role playing games and books and all that kind of good stuff too. But that really was just the most bizarre goddamn thing. And I don't know if everybody could handle it. If it's a good idea for everybody to do it, you have to really feel called to it, because it will strip away every fucking preconception you have about reality. Like I said, I'm no longer an atheist. I have no fucking idea what happens after we die, but it's not the end. This is just the luminous beings are we, not this crude matter, right? And I know that, and nobody can argue it with me, because I'm just like, and even if they said, well, we can prove it to you, I'm like, nah, you can't prove shit, because you're just not seeing it right. Because different levels of perception allow you to have a different frame of consciousness, and you begin to see different things and understand different things. When I was in the elevated state of consciousness, the best example, if you've read Knock the Devil, when Lestat talks about how he went to heaven and then he comes back and he can't quite remember what heaven was like after a while because it was so fucking awesome. Where I was and what I had learned was beyond fucking awesome. Like, just truths about humanity and who I was. And but I can't remember. It just went away as soon as it did. I think I remember some of it that day, but it was in the day after, but then it just kind of fades. I just kind of remember, but I don't. And then, and the experience with the eye and almost losing my sense of self, that's what kind of keeps me up on my trip, and that's what makes it a little bit scary. Is the Gnostics talk about the demiurge, and the demiurge is this evil entity that keeps us in the cycle of cosmic creation, right? It just goes around and around and reincarnates us forever, and it lives off of our misery. And the Gnostics believed you had to figure out a state of enlightenment. I just threw my cards over. You used to have a state of enlightenment to escape. You have to sin. Like, this is even like a hidden truth in the Bible. I'm going to do a series about the Bible, I think. If you're interested, I think I might have said this before, but if you're interested in that, comment below. I'm going to talk about like some books in the first 5, Genesis and Deuteronomy and Numbers and all that kind of stuff. Exodus. Then we start talking about Revelation, the 4 Gospels, because people just don't read the fucking Bible, right? There is a whole bunch of esoteric wisdom in there about like combining duality and all that kind of good stuff. The original interpretations of Christ are probably mushroom cults, really ripped off Mithra. But anyway, Gnosticism's part of that in the the Sophia of Jesus, I think it is, where it just talks about like the real creator of the universe is just, he doesn't have a fucking name, or doesn't have a gender, or he doesn't have an identity, or he existed before all that shit. He's so fucking beyond you. You don't need to worry about it. And that kind of makes sense, right? And again, I don't really believe that this was Jesus Christ. I don't believe a Jewish carpenter walked on water 2,000 years ago. I believe these are metaphors for teachings and things that people understood about this. But the demiurge, so underneath that creator, one of his creations is this false creator, right? The demiurge. And he's created this reality of misery that he keeps us in. And he just keeps recycling the souls forever and ever, right? So he can feed off their anguish. And, I have different beliefs. I like to believe in Frey. I hope that when I die, I go to Alfheim. I'm very drawn to, and I have a strong belief. Like, I believe all these things are just different interpretations of the same stories. Hinduism, Lord Shiva and Kali and Krishna. But the demiurge thing sticks with me, because when I was in that place beyond like consciousness, right, the 5th dimension, or the fuck I was looking at, just a goddamn eye, right? and it was punishing me because I was awake and I was trying to get out. And I felt like it was kept looking for me, right? I don't know how to explain that to you, but I had to keep dodging it with my consciousness. It's a really hard concept. I'm sorry, I probably sound like a madman rambling like a Lovecraft story or something. Maybe that's where Lovecraft got his shit, right? But it still bothers me is because that really rings true for me with the demiurge, because I'm pretty sure had I been dead, right, my consciousness would be disassociated. It would be the same thing, right? But there would be no body to come back to. So that creature, catches you, he finds you, she, whatever it is, and burns who you are away. He can't kill the spirit. Your immortal soul is immortal. Like your consciousness, the thing that's in your brain that's listening to this. And we'll have a talk about, is everybody conscious and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole different talk. But your consciousness, the sense of who you are, like I know who I am and you know who you are inside, right? It's not a particular memory. I've been the same person since I was 5 that I am now that I'm 46, right? I think I even knew better jokes when I was 5, to be honest with you. But I was essentially the same person. My identity has been built over this life, various memories and a sense of accomplishment and wisdom gathered and stuff like that. Like, I think that if a person had amnesia, they would still be that same person. They just would be different because they went from a different, I don't know if that's really explain it, but I believe you're always going to be who you are, but like the lives that we lead shape us, right? But when we die, this thing will grab us and just kind of scrub our memories and identity away, not our consciousness, but it burns out everything else. And then it shoves you in a new fucking body so you can keep feeding it. And the creator of the universe is benevolent, doesn't really want you to do this. The demiurge can only do this with your permission. He can only be like a bully, but people let him be a bully. And I'll leave you with this because I've thought about this a lot too, because I love Norse belief and Odin. But so the demiurge will try to burn out your consciousness and shove you back into the great wheel, unless if you escape through gnosis and through duality. There's all kinds of talks, right? But since I've had that trip, I kind of absolutely believe that. Am I a Gnostic Christian? No, not at all. I believe Christianity was a religion that I have a lot of different, and I was a Christian for a lot of years. And one of the pet peeves I have about the occult community is there's a lot of so-called wannabe Satanists or occultists and stuff like that. And they've never bothered to read the Bible from like an esoteric point or take a look, because there's still some cool stuff in there. It's just been twisted and muddled. And anyway, but the Gnostics, I think, were onto something with this creation being pain or whatever. And I worry that, like, when I die, if I don't figure out how to ascend, and I don't know the best way to put that, or transcend consciousness, or reach enlightenment, be a yogi master or something like that, I'm going to have to face that eye again in like the afterlife. And what's going to do is burn everything that Lenny is away, and my consciousness will just go be reborn somebody else, so I can go live another shitty life, just like we all do. And there's good things in life too. And I've always said this could be like a hell, because if hell was hell all the time, you would get used to it. There has to be some good so that you can be miserable by the bad. And there seems to me like there's a lot of pain and hurt in the world, more so than again, because I've taken enough psychedelics, I know this is more than just random bullshit. There's a harmony or plan to the universe. I don't know if it's the best harmony or plan, or if we're just in some kind of like fucked up prison or game or something like that. And I'll leave you with this, because this will be an hour YouTube video. That's awesome. If you've been with me this long, I've thought about Odin a lot when he was hanging on the tree for 9 days, and how he plucks out his own eye, right? I keep thinking, was it his own eye, or are we missing the translation there? Or did the All-Father see that fucking eye and he just punched right through it? And when he did, he saw like the ruins and the harmonies and stuff like that. Because remember, the ruins are representations of sounds that I don't think we make right anymore. This is okay, I'm not going to talk about this. But anyway, I think about like maybe that's something there, is that like, and I've thought about that if I go into a deep trance on mushrooms again, in a deep state, when I'm confronted with the eye, I'm not going to try to run away from it. I'm going to try to run right the fuck through it. And I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I don't even know if I have the balls to do it when I do it. I'll try to think of some Quizax Hatterack shit. Just go right at it, right? But I don't know. You tell me, guys. If you've had a deep psychedelic experience, deep DMT experience, a deep, deep mushroom experience. That's what happened for me. And again, and then I came away with it, like I said, a Gnostic mindset, though. Again, I'm not really a Christian person anymore. I was laughing for a lot of years, but not so much. But Gnosticism is a little bit deeper than normal Christianity. And I'm going to do another talk about that with The Matrix, those films. After my psychedelic experience, I understand The Matrix and its sequels a lot better. I'd love to talk to the Wachowskis because I think they get this too. They're trying to achieve the universe is about bringing this duality. And this is a whole different talk. Duality is the focus, the positive and the negative charge, and how they vibrate off of each other. I think it's just like everything. Like in and what is it? And I'm sorry if I have friends in the Netherlands, they're going to come after me. Was it the Guden Gap or what? At the beginning, where there's just this big void, and like the fires of Muspelheim, and oh god, was it the ice world? I might say horrible, not Swedish. I don't speak, but anyway, ice and fire come together, and it's the same thing. Positive and negative come together. Air and water, all these creation stories talk about how these two different opposing forces come together. It's these two charges, the sun and the moon, everything works together in a balance, right? And it's just kind of like this game we play with these different opposing energies and stuff like that. And I think if you can align your opposing energies and you can make the male and female one, you can transcend, you can wake up, you can basically, that's why I make them red pills. You can take the red pill and get the fuck out of this. And it's not a computer game, but it's something like that. And whatever's beyond here, though, don't get me wrong, it's not goth chicks with big titties. Get that the fuck out of your head. There's no Matrix out there with fucking Morpheus and some kind of hover ship or something. Like, I got that when I came back to reality, I guess, after my trip. I was like, I kind of like the world because I fucking like Star Wars and tacos and goth chicks. No, I like shit like that, right? I still like the physical, and I got a real strong sense where we go after this. And even if you decide to completely check out and not reincarnate into another body, again, I think the Bible has some good esoteric wisdom, and it is like, I guess esoteric is the best word for it. They talk about to Christ about like whose wife is who in heaven, and he's like, "You didn't fucking worry about it in heaven." We didn't say, "Fuck, that'd be cool if you did." He's like, they don't even fucking worry about it though, because it doesn't matter in heaven. You're so goddamn happy, and it's so different. It just doesn't even matter. And I think that's kind of almost like hits on that. Is it's so different. It's so disconnected from the flesh that shit like that doesn't even matter. But guys, I have gone on now for 53 minutes and 16 seconds according to my timer, and this was supposed to be a 30-minute video. I could talk about psychedelics all day and the things that are associated with them, and I'll probably, like I said, I'm going to do another video later on tonight because, well, shit, I don't have anything to do tomorrow. But that was my experience. If you've had a psychedelic experience, a really intense one, I would love to hear about it. Comment below. If you like this experience, if this kind of helped you, like, oh wow, I guess that's kind of like the way I described it, maybe share it, I guess, or something like that. I love to talk about things like this and get this message out because, well, watch my next video where I talk about, well, again, the book of Revelations. But again, I'm not a Christian. I'm not going to talk about this from like, I'm going to just preach the gospel to you. This is from somebody who I guess I would almost be like a Satanist kind of, but there's something to the book and prophecy and all that kind of stuff, the outpouring spirit, psychedelics, and especially with things that are happening in the world today. Anyway, but we'll do that video, and we'll talk about that shit and all that kind of good stuff. But for now, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Remember my contest if I can get 100 subscribers, because I'm just starting out on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. As each one of those pops for 100 subscribers, giving away a free 30-minute tarot card reading. And again, you can find me at Dysfunctional Enlightenment on Facebook, Dysfunctional Enlightenment on YouTube, and the Lenny Graves at TikTok and Instagram, though I hardly ever use my Instagram. Thanks, guys, for listening to me talk at you tonight. Talk to you later.